Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Paul. Hopefully you're having an amazing day. We're going to be discussing in this video a new patent which has been filed by AMD, Gaming Super Resolution, and it discusses upsampling from a lower resolution to a higher resolution using a neural network. This is probably FSR, or as a lot of people are calling it, AMD's answer to DLSS. And I think most would agree that this is a solution that we've been really waiting for from AMD. This technology, in my opinion, is perhaps one of the most important software releases that AMD have ever released, and I do feel that they need to get it right. I'm going to discuss a lot of my thoughts and also some additional things of what I've been hearing in just a moment. But first of all, let's just quickly go over the patent. Now, I just want to give a quick disclaimer here. A patent is a patent. A patent does not necessarily equate to the product that we receive, but this patent is matching quite closely with how I believe that this technology works. And yeah, so with that caveat out of the way, let's have a look at things, shall we? The method includes receiving an input image, having a first resolution, generating linear downsampled versions of the input image by a downsampling of the input image via a linear upscaling network, and generating non-linear downsampled versions of the input image by downsampling the input image via non-linear upscaling network. Well, I'm sure you'll agree that that was extremely easy to follow, and I don't really need to explain anymore, right? Yeah, even I'm getting lost in that, just trying to read it out to you guys. But the actual method is quite simple, and we'll get into it in just a second. But the second claim I do want to discuss here is the device 100. There are reference images that will be plonked on screen. Can include, for example, a computer, a gaming device, a handheld device, a set-top box, and so on and so on. But basically, it does need to include things like a processor, a memory, and some type of graphics and storage and that type of thing. Which, yeah, well, these things kind of tend to need a processor to do anything. In various alternatives, the processor includes one or more processors, such as a central processing unit, a graphics processing unit, or another type of compute accelerator, a CPU, a GPU, or one or more processor cores. Now, if we have a look at the actual patent images themselves, I think it actually explains things a lot better. So perhaps the most interesting patent is the one where we can see that the original image, which is 2560 by 1440, that's 1440p. Now, if you look further into the patent, it actually says that these are just example resolutions. So these resolutions could be, let's say, 1080p up to whatever, or it could be 1440p to upscale to 4K or whatever else. And we'll get more into that in just a second. However, you can see that basically it divides, and we'll get into exactly what that means in just a moment. And eventually we find the output resolution, which is obviously a higher resolution than what was originally being created by the GPU. And in this case, it's 2880p. And obviously there are other images that we can see as well. So what basically it mentions several times is generating a feature map. I'll actually provide an article link which goes much more extensively into how this works, and I'll show you a couple of screenshots of this as well on screen. But I don't want to get too much into the specifics of how this works for a couple of reasons. One, this video is already going to get kind of lengthy discussing other things, and two, quite frankly, this is not guaranteed to be how FSR works. So yeah, when obviously FSR is formally announced that AMD have provided all of the details, we can kind of go into it more in depth. So this technology is looking to be really cool, and it does match up to what I've leaked previously, that it's basically using kind of a upsampling using AI, but it's not done in exactly the same way as, let's say, Nvidia's DLSS solution. And Cortex himself, in one of his videos, he mentioned that we're probably going to see this released next month. That has matched up quite closely with what I'm hearing. And I'm hearing that the quality, and I've mentioned this in several videos at this point, is really, really good. But to my knowledge, it's still not quite as good as the latest DLSS titles. So I wouldn't quite expect it to be, you know, to the latest and greatest quality of DLSS, but this is not to say that it's bad. In fact, I'm hearing it's really good, and furthermore, for people who are just saying it only works on RDNA 2, I've got news for you. I don't think this is the case. I already leaked that I think it works on RDNA 1, and I've mentioned this a couple of times at this point, but I also think it works on older cards. I believe it might even go as far back as Polaris, possibly even earlier, although I'm not guaranteeing this, but at least two people at this point have told me that this is not limited to just RDNA, and they've told me at the very least it goes back to Vega, and I believe it's probably Polaris as well. So this means in theory, and again, a theory is a theory is not an official statement from any company, but in theory anyway, this could even work on the previous generation consoles, but I don't know if it would be implemented. And yeah, it's kind of like, it doesn't seem to need to be an AMD card either. So technically speaking, this could actually be implemented on, let's say, an Intel Xe card or an Nvidia card, but I don't know if developers have been working on that yet. It seems to, again, according to what I'm being told, it's only actually been tested out on AMD hardware. But in theory, it could be ported to, let's say, a GeForce card. It could be ported to Intel Xe whenever they finally get their butts around to actually releasing that. And this technology, in my opinion, is going to be, as I have said several times at this point, I think it's probably going to be one of the most important software releases that AMD have ever released, because, yeah, no, it's kind of making me go back to the interview that I recently had with AMD. And it's like, you know, when I was interviewing Frank, he mentioned that they believe, that is AMD, that, you know, they want to continue to provide value, and this is not an exact quote, but they want to continue to provide value after you've bought a card. So if you're still rocking, let's say, an RX 570, they don't want to just lock you out of that ecosystem. They still want you to be able to enjoy features like Radeon Boost or whatever. And this is not necessarily saying that their approach is better than Nvidia's. I'm sure some people will think it is, some people will think it's not, but Nvidia's approach is quite different. And DLSS is obviously a technology which is, again, continuing to evolve at a very rapid pace. And it does make me wonder just how efficient the DLSS algorithm is, especially given it's running on tensor cores. And it does make me wonder if we're going to see another version of DLSS, which is either a lot faster, which may be a slightly lower image quality. So there's almost like two modes of DLSS. And again, this is not a leak. This is just speculation based on, you know, kind of rumors and whispers on the ground. I'll just say it like that. But I do wonder if Nvidia are going to kind of have two versions of this, and one is going to be like the ultra high quality version, which is probably even a better quality than what they've got with like DLSS 2, and one is going to be almost an AMD solution. I don't know if that's the case, but I would be interested. And yeah, graphics are going to get very interesting. I'm even hearing whispers that AMD might have a new version of this software for future cards. And this is like kind of their it works on everything solution. But for later cards, maybe for RDNA 4, they possibly are going to go with a different route. But I'm getting some kind of conflicting information there, because one source is insisting to me that there is machine learning acceleration chiplets on RDNA 4. However, another one is telling me, no, this is definitely not the case, and they are not going to be doing this at all for RDNA. So personally, I would probably say that at the moment I'm filing that as not true, but I'm willing to kind of revisit it. Either way, getting back to the story at hand, this tech is going to be really cool. I'm just looking forward to it, because again, I think that, you know, it's one of the big features that I'm kind of missing when I'm using my 6800. I do miss DLSS, and I know that it kind of wasn't the best when it launched, and I think AMD want to avoid that. You know, DLSS was one of those pieces of tech where Nvidia obviously went first with it, and it wasn't perfect. I think they should have like left it for a little bit, but obviously the reason they were pushing it out was to try and, you know, push the RTX 20 series value proposition. And I think that if DLSS had been held back 6 months, I think it probably would have gotten a much better reception. It's still not perfect, and I don't think AMD's solution is going to be perfect either. but I do think it's going to be pretty darn good. And speaking of Nvidia, there's another story that I'd like to quickly cover, and this concerns Nvidia's LHR cards. I'm sure everyone knows what they are at this point, but like hash rate cards obviously just nerf mining performance. Again, as we've discussed, it does not affect gaming performance. So if you get 85 frames a second on an RTX 3070, you will still get that frame rate with an RTX 3070 LHR. But basically, there's a story going around from PC Gamer that the FE cards do not get this mining limitation. So if you buy an FE card, well, you are good to go. And obviously this means that, in theory anyway, the FE cards are going to be the cards that everyone wants to buy if you're a miner, but AIB variants, for example, let's say an MSI 3080 or an EVGA 3070 or whatever, those cards will actually be mining limited. But in the article, it does speculate that this possibly means that the RTX 3080 Founders Edition and other cards will no longer be produced for FE, and they will only be AIB models. Now, I reached out to a couple of AIB sources, and they've seemed to confirm that yes, the 3080 and so on will not be mining limited. And to be honest with you, this is an Nvidia spokesperson that said that to PC Gamers. That's not surprising. But to what I was told anyway, the FE cards are not going anywhere, but it does seem that Nvidia are not going to be pushing them so heavily anymore, and they're going to be putting them out in smaller quantities and pushing the AIB cards more. But again, that's just a whisper, so that could not be true. But either way, or if you are a miner, and I can hear teeth grinding as I say that, you know what to do. You have to buy either an FE card, which good luck to you, because obviously the quantity is going to be very small and probably going to be getting smaller, at least according to what I've heard, or you will need to pick up one of the, mining specific SKUs, which we all know about. The third option is that if you do want to buy like a 3080, let's say, then you could also go with an AIB model, but you would probably need to get one on the, used market at this point, because basically it's not going to be too long at all before pretty much every card which is gone on sale is going to essentially be the LHR versions. So basically, the non-hash rate limited cards, they're going to basically no longer be available. I mean, let's face it, these cards are going to sell out super quick. The non-LHR variants, because of obvious reasons, like cards are just selling out like anyway. So it's not like it's going to take, weeks and months for these things to trickle out of supply chain. So yeah, anyway, I think I've rambled on that subject enough. With that said, thank you very much for checking out the video. If you've enjoyed it, you know what to do. Click the likey button and also subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you soon. Take care of yourselves. Have an amazing day. Bye for now.